Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. It was finally time after doing so much D-rank missions and a bunch of chores in Team 7. The Hokage had allowed the team to undertake a C-rank mission that lead to the Land of Waves. Their client Tazuna, a drunken bridge builder, was the man they needed to protect once they reached there. Only to find out that they got ambushed by a pair of Rouge ninjas who were using a jutsu to hide inside puddles. After taking care of both of them thanks to the help of Kakashi and Sasuke along with Naruto, who stabbed a kunai into the wound in order to get the poison out of him. Kakashi then informed them that they would continue on with the mission. Of course he was displeased with how Sakura or Sasuke showed no concern for the blonde ninja. Before they could reach the boat, Kakashi brought Naruto over behind a tree to help heal the wound as much as he could by using a very low-level fire jutsu to seal the wound on his hand. After that was done and more bickering and arguments between Naruto and Sasuke, with the pink banshee filling in spots and shooting down Naruto, saying how he will never compare to Sasuke in any way possible. This wounded Naruto a lot, but not to an unbearable degree though, since he knows that Sakura is only kidding and that she was blind by being infatuated by Sasuke's coolness. Couple hours have gone by with Team 7 working with their guide Tazuna, finally arriving towards the village after a brief encounter with Zabuza, an A-rank missing ninja which proved to be very powerful and strong even with Kakashi as their sensei. But thanks to the teamwork with Naruto and Sasuke, they managed to free their sensei from the terrible water entrapment jutsu that traps the enemy inside of a water-filled bubble that is used to drown and capture their prey until they pass out or become dead. Once they got to the house, Naruto went and asked Kakashi if they needed some backup after hearing that Zabuza somehow managed to escape by using a replacement jutsu with a water clone. Liking the idea from Naruto, he then asked the boy to send a messenger bird towards the Hokage with a written scroll he had planned before even taking the mission. Naruto, taking a quick peek at the message and saw the team Kakashi wanted to come to help was none other than Team Miyukuno. A team name that Ino made up for her team that consisted of Haku herself and their squad leader Miya Hyuga, Haku's adoptive mother, that found her roaming around after the bloodline purge. So smiling to himself and hopping up one of the tallest trees with the bird resting on his shoulder. With a careful grasp on the bird leg, he managed to tie the small message and send the bird flying towards the blue skies and back to Konoha. Now with all teams together and getting all prepared to fight Zabuza, a terrible argument picked up once again with Team 7 along with Team Miyukuno, all spectators of the outcome. XXX. And I keep telling you, Sasuke, that I am better than you are. Naruto shouted while slamming his fist into the wooden table, shaking the plates and cups that were on it. Listen here, dope, you will never be better than me, nor will you ever get stronger than me. Because I am an Uchiha and an elite ninja, retorted Sasuke, with his eyes leering at the orange-clad ninja who was waving his arms aimlessly. Yeah, and I'm Naruto Uzumaki, who will kick your butt one day and become the strongest ninja ever. He shouted and then blinked at the laughter Sasuke was giving off. Why didn't this feel right, he thought to himself. This laughter was all too familiar. The same kind of laughter he always heard in the academy days. Seriously, Naruto, what is an Uzumaki, you tell me? Sasuke suddenly said, causing Naruto to blink in confusion, while Miya and Kakashi, who were helping Tsunami out in the kitchen, lower their eyes halfway, listening in on the conversation. Haven't you noticed, Naruto, that there aren't any left? How are you so strong in your pathetic excuse for a ninja if there aren't any left? He continued, earning some glares from Ino and Haku, who were ready to punch the lights out on the poor bastard. Sasuke is right, Naruto. Hell, I bet all Uzumaki are probably weak, considering you yourself are too stupid and weak to even get a simple test done right. Sakura added to just inflate Sasuke's ego even more, at the same time being ignorant of all the kill intent that were going across the rooms. Inari, who was listening in on the stairs, couldn't believe that this boy's friends were acting like this to him. Aren't they supposed to be a team? Take that back, Uzumakis are strong. Naruto tried to say, keeping his what he believes to be a very powerful clan that he came from. But his emotions were getting the best of him. At the same time was wondering if Sakura and Sasuke were right. But he wouldn't accept that train of thought. Then how come there's no Uchihas left then, Sasuke? I thought they were supposed to be in. He never got to finish his sentence. With Sasuke leaping over the table and kicking Naruto squarely in the head, sending the boy flying out the window and into the forest, rolling to a stop, lying still on the ground. Don't you ever speak down about my clan again, bastard, before he could continue his assault on Naruto. Haku and Ino both attacked Sasuke at the same time, pinning him towards the wall. With Kakashi and Miya right behind the two, glaring at the boy who was pinned. Learn your place, Uchiha, and don't you ever disown a clan like that again. You may not be on my squad, but I'm sure Kakashi wouldn't mind me bruising you till it becomes apparent in your head that you show respect. Miya threatened the boy, who in turn just gritted his teeth and sneer at the girls, who just drop him on the ground. To add insult to injury on Naruto's end, who was finally getting up from the sudden kick in the face by Duck Butt Boy, Sakura walked up to him and was looking down at him with a smile. Looking up and smiling back, Naruto figured that Sakura finally understood that Sasuke is a bad person. Only for reality to kick him in the chin, literally from Sakura kicking Naruto, pushing the boy onto his back. Holding an arm under his chin, staring up at her disbelievingly. Only to be spit on by the girl. Face it, Naruto, you're a sorry excuse for a ninja. Everyone knows that the Uzumakis were a weak clan. Haven't you noticed that there's none around? None whatsoever. I even heard that they couldn't even save their own village because of how weak they were. Hell, I bet your parents were pathetic as well. No wonder they left you in the orphanage. They probably hated you too much and left you behind. Even your sorry excuse for a mother that probably dropped you off and didn't want you. That did it, with both Sasuke and Sakura saying all those horrible things about his clan, about him, even about his parents. He couldn't take it anymore and just ran away from the house. With Sakura just smiling, only to get smacked in the head by Haku, knocking the pathetic female ninja unconscious. She then looked up at the bushes that rustle from Naruto running through them with a sad look. She just spoke up to the person that appeared behind her without making eye contact. Mom, is Naruto going to be alright? She asked, turning around to face her adoptive mother Miya, who just let out a content sigh and shook her head. Not sure, Haku. But don't worry. I have a feeling once he takes out his frustration he will be fine. He knows that he has 6 people cheering for him. You, me, Ino, Kakashi, Iruka and the 3rd Hokage. Then blinked at Haku's slight giggles. You're also forgetting everyone at Ichiraku's and Hinata, Mom, Haku added, only to get some slight chuckles from Miya. With the two just staring at the path Naruto took, hoping the boy wouldn't give up on his dreams. XXX. Meanwhile, with the running Naruto. He didn't know where he was running to, nor did he care where he ended up. He couldn't believe the words Sasuke and Sakura said to him, including about his Uzumaki clan. Sure, he never actually saw a fellow Uzumaki in the village or anyone who met one before. Well, he has a hunch that Kakashi Sensei and Miya Sensei have met one once in their line of duty before. Since the way they watch out for the boy. Which now strikes him odd that he never once asked the two about his mother or father. Then again, it will probably open up a bad wound in the case that they had died during a ninja mission. That would definitely explain him being at the orphanage. But right now he should just break his bond with Sakura and Sasuke. Obviously they are not even going to be nice to him, so why should he be nice to them? Well, a team is still a team. Wiping away a few stray tears from his eyes, he suddenly tripped over a branch that sent him tumbling down a hillside, rolling at an incredible speed only to be stopped by crashing into something big and hard. He groaned in pain and hissed from the throbbing headache he was having. Flipping backward and off, his head rubbing softly on the spot where it hurt. He looked up with blinking eyes and that widened to the size of dinner plates. It was a moss-covered village sign. Using some shadow clones to create a tower of Naruto's. He softly wiped away the moss that covered the words, and surprisingly the black ink was still there. Uzushiogakure village where proud Uzumaki lives. He shouted out with glee and feel of the clones dispelling them into clouds with a poof. He quickly jumped onto his feet and couldn't hide his excitement. He then ran towards the destroyed village, hoping that they were some scrolls that were still intact from the destruction this village went through. He walked and walked, seeing only broken windows, tattered cloths, rusty old wheelbarrows, signs that were half hanging and swinging. Burnt up dolls and toys scatter along with rubble and garbage were all over the place. He suddenly saddened at the destruction of the village. While thinking that Sakura and Sasuke were right, maybe he is the last of his clan. And maybe, just maybe, they were a weak ninja race. Shaking his head and looking up at the building that he had stopped in front of, he couldn't believe what he read on the sign. Ninjutsu library where experimented and completed project jutsus are made. Being one to want to learn new jutsus, he headed inside the library and, dare he say, started reading the scrolls that were left there from his clans. Sadly though, there weren't any jutsus that have been written or completed. The library itself looked like it could collapse any minute, considering all of the mold and the gray color atmosphere it was giving off, along with some very dark stains on the walls. He really hoped that it wasn't blood that was still left from their destruction. He remembered that lesson about a village called the Whirlpool Village that learned and excelled in sealing arts. Because of that, many great nations feared that the small village would prove to be a dangerous village and attacked them and destroyed them, leaving very few survivors who managed to escape. Is this town that Whirlpool Village? He may not be book smart or intelligent to understand things to a degree. But every symbol he noticed in the village was a lot of swirls. The same ones that the Leaf Village had. He will have to speak with the old man about this sometime once he returns, that is. Begrudgingly, he couldn't find a decent scroll that was legible enough to read or that wasn't in pieces. With a disgruntled sigh, he turned around only to fall through the floor, screaming and slamming hard to the bottom of the library. Ouch. That hurt. Should have been more careful there, Naruto. Huh. He suddenly blinked his eyes and let out a huge grin. At the same time started hopping up and down towards the destroyed furnished carpeted floors that had tears and holes in it. At the end of the hall was a scroll. A big scroll that looked like the one that he almost gave to Mizuki back in the Leaf Village, but not this time. Since he was an Uzumaki and probably the last one of his clan, he could actually keep this one for himself. Though he would be careful this time around to make sure nobody, he was serious too, that no one knew he had this scroll in his possession. Opening up the scroll and sitting down by the pedestal that had the glass case for the scroll, he started reading up on the many jutsus that was probably written down for generations of his clan. What shocked him the most was the huge amount of skills for the shadow clone jutsu, along with some powerful water type jutsus and some wind types on the side. His grin just got even bigger, figuring out that it probably means he can learn wind and water jutsus. Which everyone knows this, that water beats fire. So if he can learn a water jutsu that can beat the bastard Sasuke's fire jutsu, he would be known as the strongest ninja ever. Then a quick mental flash of Zabuza came into his mind. Shaking that out of his thoughts, he scolds himself. No, Naruto, Sasuke isn't the only strong ninja out there. Bah, who cares, I just want to kick the Tem's butt. Now let's see. Oh, this looks promising. Chakra chains, and He squinted his eyes at the writing at the bottom. That rank about S-rank jutsu along with a way of how to activate it. Jinchuriki ultimate power unlocks the hidden power inside those who can wield it. He read out loud, scratching the side of his cheeks. He was curious what would happen if he would activate it. Without any second thoughts and a happy smile creeping on his lips, he walked out in the middle of the room where he fell and started following the directions on the seal. First, he needed to make sure that he has full chakra power. Okay, all I have to do is eat this, bleg, he said while sticking his tongue out from the distaste of the flavor. Kakashi-sensei will always tell his team that to use a soldier pill if necessary or only for emergency. Well, this is kind of an emergency, right? Okay, what's next? With full chakra, create about 6 shadow clones and form a circle. Crossing his fingers and shouting out the word shadow clone jutsu, he created 6 perfect copy of himself at the same time. They all form a complete circle. The Kyuubi inside the 4th seal started feeling funny and sensed a very strange power that was going through his host. Okay, next use these hand seals with each shadow clone, while the user channels chakra through his body. So he did as instructed. The first shadow clone did the seals of snake, monkey, and horse. After his clone did that, he suddenly felt a rush of chakra entering his body, soothing out any aches or pains, replacing them with what felt like rushing flow of energy. The Kyuubi inside though was aching and writhing in pain from the sudden pull of his chakra being absorbed into what looked like the 4th ceiling was fully taking his chakra. The second clone did the next hand seals of dragon, bird, and rabbit. In turn, the flow of chakra was now continuing faster in Naruto, feeling that his body was adjusting and feeling comfortable by the flow, along with his muscles slightly increasing a bit but not too noticeable. The Kyuubi on the other hand was doing everything possible to fight back from whatever his host was doing, feeling the chakra inside his body being pulled and fading away from him. The 4 last clones did their hand seals after another, since the next instruction of the scroll suggests the user to have the last remaining 4 to all do it at once. Combining a row of seals that are snake, tiger, dog, bird, boar, ox, rat, and sheep in turn order. 3rd clone snake, dog, and bird. 4th clone boar, ox, and sheep. 5th clone snake, tiger, and rat. 6th clone dragon, horse, and monkey. Secret art, beast absorption jutsu. He shouted, then he screamed in sudden pain from all the flowing chakra that he felt earlier was not coming from his clones. It was coming within him, hearing also a second screaming voice cussing out to the boy. You bastard, what have you done? Was that an Uzumaki sealing art you just used? The screaming voice shouted out to the boy, at the same time slowly disappearing and fading out of existence. The shadow clones all started to poof away from the powerful flow of chakra going inside of him, making a huge cloud of smoke covering the entire area he was in, and then everything went black for Naruto, at the same time felt the floor beneath him on his face. Once the smoke cleared, all you could see was Naruto sprawl out on the floor with a chakra outline glowing around him and dim from view. XXX. The next morning Naruto woke up with a start and sweat going down his forehead. He had a weird dream that he met his ancestors and the Uzumaki clan, all of them telling him that they were proud of him and wished him good luck. Along with a woman who had long beautiful red hair hugging him close to her, saying that she will always be watching him from above and that she was very proud of him being her son. The next dream was that he was changing into what would be a fox version of himself, with the villagers wanting to kill him only to stop and started hugging the poor boy nearly to death with words of kawaii and how cute he was. At the same time 3 girls saved his life from the hugging mob only to get covered with kisses. Boy, that is the last time I ever eat bad ramen, he said to himself. Then sudden realization hit him, he had overslept. The others must be very worried about him. Before he went to stop what he was thinking about, he shook his head and remembered that Kakashi and Miya sensei would be worried for his safety along with Haku and Ino. so he had to return to them and face the duck-butt boy and the pink banshee. He was surprised he changed his thoughts about Sakura so fast. Then again, what she said right before he left, that his mom was a. Well, he wouldn't go that far into thought. He jumped back up through the hole that he fell through and ran back to the house, remembering that today was the rematch against Zabuza. Once he arrived back at the house and in an impressive rescue, if he did say so himself, saved Inari and his mother from the two bandits that were going to kill them by using the chakra chains he learned from the scroll to tie them both together and sent them flying backwards into a tree with gold-like chains covering them. He then got tired of their screaming and shouting at him. He knocked the two out and declared that no harm will come to anyone when he was around. After all that, and saying how Inari was a real hero, he dashed off towards the bridge to begrudgingly save his team from Zabuza. Once he arrived there, the first thing he saw was that there was thick mist surrounding the entire bridge, and he heard what sounded like a battle going on, along with Ino flying right at him from being punched hard by somebody. Catching her before she could land on the hard cold bridge, he asked her what was going on. Ino started to explain to him what had happened while he was gone. From what he understood, Zabuza had implanted a memory seal on Haku's neck that made her become his tool and attacked her Sasuke and Sakura. Thankfully though, Sakura was told to protect the bridge builder while she and Sasuke went to fight off Haku. There were times where Ino had to stop Sasuke from killing Haku with deadly jutsus and certain attacks. This angered Naruto very much. How dare the Tem try and kill one of his teammates? His friend no less, while at the same time switching places with Ino from deadly blows to only have Haku replace herself with the girl. Then that means Haku is trying to fight the seal. Naruto said out loud, with Ino nodding in agreement. Putting Ino back on her feet, the two of them went into the fray and formed an excellent teamwork that they never thought they could have for not being together that long. They managed to save Haku with Naruto using his clan's chakra chains to capture the girl and squeezing her till she passed out from out of breath. Then Ino used the mind swap jutsu to enter the girl's mind to search through her memories for the hand seals that Zabuza used on her. Once that was done, they rested Haku's body up against some wood boards near Sakura and Tazuna, with Sakura screaming her head off, asking what happened to Sasuke or why they bother saving a betrayer of the villager. To only get socked in the face by Ino, who was breathing harshly at her once friend. How she turned out like this she would never understand. Actually, Ino, what did happen to Sasuke? Naruto had to ask, since while he may be somewhat of a jerk, he was still part of Team 7 and the last Uchiha of the Hidden Village. Ino explained to him that Haku did this weird jutsu called Demon Ice Mirrors, Crystal Ice Mirrors, while pointing towards all the senbons that covered her body, telling Naruto to not grab them yet, which had the boy wondering why she didn't want help, only to find out that her right arm was numb from some of the senbons hitting her pressure points, the same ones that Sasuke was covered in. The battle was long, hard, and at the same time tear-jerking. Zabuza, on his dying wish, apologized to Haku, explaining to her everything he did with her before placing a memory seal on her neck. The reason he did that is so that it would protect her from anyone who would want her bloodline or asked her where she lived. Then explained how to take care of herself and make sure to watch over her adoptive mother. XXX. After all that was done and over with, at the same time the villagers came to their rescue from Gato's remaining goons. The mission was a complete success and the city was purged from Gato's wrath. After heading back to the village with Naruto keeping his distance from Sasuke and Sakura saying a false story of how Sasuke saved everyone from Haku's mind control and slight betrayal. Naruto shook his head, wondering whatever he had seen in the girl in the first place. Hell, Hinata is a lot nicer than Sakura and didn't always punch me or hit me. He suddenly hummed out and stopped, with Haku standing in front of him, smiling towards the confused boy and then placing a small kiss on his forehead. Yawn. Boy, that sure was an interesting dream. Naruto yawned out and pulled the blankets off him. He rubbed his eyes to get rid of any tiredness seeing the apartment that he is living in. It was a gift to him from the third Hokage for Naruto to live in ever since he had been kicked out of the orphanage at the age of 8. But he doesn't care much of what happened to him in the past now, knowing the hidden reason behind them kicking him out was because of the nine-tailed fox sealed inside of him. As for the dream he had, well, it got a lot weirder and apparently it had to involve today. Okay, first what happened, it was him and the villagers all looking at him with what seemed to be hatred mixed in with he looks cute in a way. Then after that it showed him beating Sasuke's fire jutsu with one of his own water jutsus. Boy, that would be awesome, he thought. After that it then showed him and Hinata spending the rest of the day at Ichiraku's ramen shop. With the girl giggling and smiling towards him, she looked beautiful with that kind of smile along with her reaching for something above his head. Shaking himself out of the sleep phase, he noticed that his bangs were hanging awfully low to his eyes. Maybe his hair has grown out. That or he never realized that his hair was this long after taking off the ninja headband. Slapping the side of his cheeks, grinning like a fool, he got up from his bed and prepared breakfast while also pulling out the Uzumaki scroll from under his bed and once again opened it up to see what kind of jutsu he will learn today. He decided not to learn any S-rank jutsus considering the secret art. Beast absorption jutsu knocked him out cold and left him there at the ruined site for an entire day. So for now he will go with C-rank jutsu, and surprisingly he found one that looks very promising. Water style. Bubble bomb jutsu. He hummed out in thought, reading over the instructions for how to activate the jutsu. The user must concentrate his chakra through both his hands as they clasp together. While doing this, the caster must then separate his hands apart and form a bubble. To get a good idea of how a bubble feels, they must think of them as clay. After the bubble is formed and between the caster's hands, they must thrust their arms forward and the bubble will explode into a powerful gush of icy cold water, making it feel like knives. He read out loud and started rubbing the back of his left ear with one eye closed softly. He could have sworn he just felt fur. Meh, probably just my hair getting in the way. Now let's try this baby out, he exclaimed. After getting things all clean up and organized so nothing will get soaked by the jutsu he is about to learn. Over the next few hours after finishing his breakfast, he tried and did everything that he could to get the jutsu to work, but nothing happened. He tried it with shadow clones only for the clones to fall apart into a puddle of water. He didn't know he could make water clone. He read over the instructions once more to make sure he is doing it right, only to find out that this jutsu can only be used by the original. Shadow clones will just burst into nothing but water. So these jutsus interfere with my shadow clones, huh? Alright then. No more games, I will complete this jutsu. He shouted to no one and continued his assault to completing the jutsu. But at last he could not just get the feel of the jutsu. Getting frustrated over failing to get it down so many times, he decided to take a break for now and head to Ichiraku's since almost 4 hours has passed and lunch was nearing. Getting all change and ready, he headed out to the village, where Deja Vu was taking its place. He was keeping his eyes on the villagers that were all staring back at him with disgust, along with some confusion in their eyes while whispering between one another. While some of the girls around his age were blushing and shouting out the word cute. This made him close his eyes and sweat drop at their reaction. He wasn't wearing anything cute, was he? Taking a look down at his outfit to make sure he wasn't, he just kept hearing them say cute over and over. While some were whispering if the fox was taking over him, those shot the theory down when a little girl stopped in front of him. Looking down at the girl with blinking eyes, she just smiled up at him with a huge grin with one tooth missing, then asked the most random and weirdest question that had ever crossed his mind. "Hi mister, can I scratch your ears?" she asked with her hands behind her back, moving her body side to side. He raised an eyebrow up to his hair along with pursing his lips up at the same time. This is definitely the most random question he was ever asked. With a shrug of his shoulders he thought, why not? Just encourage the girl. So with a foxy grin he knelt down and let her do what she wanted. Once she started scratching the back of his ear, which earned some purring from him. The little girl and the villagers around him all cried out cute at the scene, seeing how Naruto was really getting into the treatment to his ears. All nodded to each other and deemed that it is indeed just Naruto being Naruto. After the girl was done and waved goodbye to the still grinning Naruto, he continued his walk towards Ichiraku. Surprisingly, that scratch on the ear felt really good for him, and he couldn't understand why he started purring from it. Oh well, it was definitely a nice scratch on the ear. Who would have thought I needed that to calm me down? He thought to himself and felt his stomach growling after he saw that the destination was just in front of him. So why not grab some lunch before he go and begrudgingly meet up with his teammates? Ayame and Tuki were just staring at the orange-clad boy who was slurping and engulfing the entire 4 bowls of ramen. No, they were not staring at his huge appetite, they were staring at the top of his head and the way his ears were twitching every time he would slurp up the ramen. After he got done his 4th bowl of ramen, he thanked the 2 for the meal and asked them if it will be alright for him to hang around for a while. Which the 2 happily obliged and told the boy he could stay, while Ayame then said she would like the company since the lunch hour is usually slow. Watching the boy hold his 2 hands together and moving them apart in a slow fashion. Only to let out some frustrated sighs and grunts of annoyance. Naruto, what are you trying to do? Ayame asked the boy, seeing him trying and trying again to do whatever it was he is trying to do. Well, you see, Ayame-chan, I'm trying to get this jutsu to perform correctly. I got the gist of it and flow my chakra through my hands. But I just can't seem to get the bubble part to appear. He explained to the ramen waitress, who blinked her eyes in focus. Seeing that what the boy was saying / doing seemed to be right from little information he gave her. Before you ask, Ayame-chan, the scroll I was reading on said to think of the bubble as clay, then it will form correctly in my hands, but, he suddenly said. Growling at another failed attempt to have the bubble appeared, he just let out a sigh and slumped his head on the counter. Tapping her chin with a small pen, she was thinking of a way to help the boy, and from the looks of it, he seemed like he have been at it for hours. Of course it didn't help that she couldn't keep her eyes off his ears. Then blink in surprise from her father speaking up, drying his hands on his apron. Naruto, you said that scroll wanted you to think the bubble like clay, correct? He asked the blonde ninja, who nodded his head on the counter along with Ayame tilting her head towards her father. He then just let out a few chuckles and motioned for Naruto to come behind the counter. Once Naruto did, Tuki started running water in the ramen stand sink, then poured some dish soap in the sink. For bubbles started to appear and floated out from the sink. I think what it is trying to explain, Naruto, is that bubble is a form of like dish soap. Here, I'll show you. Forming his pointer finger in an oval shape and connecting the finger to his thumb, he just grinned and dipped his hand in the soap. Now, as you can see, Naruto and Ayame, the soap is like clay in a way. He started explaining, at the same time pulled his hand out of the water, showing that the soap formed an oval in the opening of his thumb and finger. Then you can blow through it just like this. Quote. He then blew softly at his hand, showing that the air was forming a bubble from his hand and gently flew up into the air. Getting a smile from Naruto, being amazed of how Tuki formed the bubble without any type of ninja skills or chakra. With any kind of soap substance, Naruto, you can form any bubbles as long there is a circle or an opening like I just formed with my hands. Give it a try, maybe it could help you with your training, he exclaimed and chuckled at the boy's eager nodding and saw that he did exactly what he did. Before Naruto could pull his hand out, Tuki stopped him from there. Now, before you go and blow, Naruto, what does the dish soap feel to you? He asked while crossing his arms, grinning at the young ninja who looked at his hands with a quizzical gaze and widened his eyes with glee. He quickly hugged Chuki with an oomph from the man and then Ayame who chuckled and hugged back. Seeing the boy jumping over the counter, he then shouted, "Thanks you guys. This will really help me out with my training." He shouted towards the ramen owners and headed off towards the training field where his team was waiting for him. Ayame, who still had a smile on her face, turned to look at her father and blinked at his confused look while sweat dropping with a deadpan look at his final realization. "Hey Ayame, when did Naruto get fox ears?" He asked her, which the only response he got was a sigh from the girl who walked towards the back of the ramen stand. Leaving her confused dad alone for now and get ready for the even rush hour. XXX. Naruto, who was now a happy person and one lucky ninja to have friends like that to help him out with a jutsu he couldn't get right or didn't quite understand. Heck, they weren't even ninjas and they still managed to help him out. Then again, Ayame and Chuki are great at what they do. It wouldn't be a surprise if they knew how bubbles work. He commented while just happily walking through the training grounds to where he was to meet up with his team. Though a little bit later than he usually arrives at, he went back to his house and looked through the jutsu once more. Remembering the caution note that was writing underneath it. This jutsu can somewhat be dangerous for the user even it is a C-ranked jutsu. There is two ways of activating it. 1. The user uses her own sweat to create the bubble, causing dehydration for the caster. 2. Being surrounded by body of water, which the user can then manipulate the water flow and make it as his own. "What you blabbering about, loser?" Sasuke said with a sneer, seeing the blonde ninja just talking to himself and no one that were around him. Naruto just glared at the boy and lowered his arms down to his sides and retorted back at him. "None of your business, duck butt." He chuckled at the end, seeing Sasuke raising an eyebrow from the nickname, then growled out at Naruto only for Sakura to save him the trouble. "Naruto, you treat Sasuke-kun with more respect." She screamed out, ready to punch the poor boy into oblivion, only to have Naruto to jump to the side, avoiding the wallop that was waiting for him. He then just tripped Sakura over her legs, causing the pink banshee to cry out and land on her behind. "Listen Sakura, I would love to hear your hellish voice of death, but I don't think Kakashi-sensei would not like it for his team to argue right now." He explained half-heartedly to the leering girl, who got up from her sitting position and turned towards a tree to see that Naruto was right. Kakashi-sensei was upon them, and actually then both she and Naruto shouted at once. "You're actually on time." Kakashi, lowering his Ika book, looked towards his students with a raised eyebrow where his single eye is. Then looked up in thought. "Well, actually there were some important matters that I needed to discuss with you three. But seeing how Naruto properly learn a jutsu on his free time, why not test it out, shall we?" He asked with an eye smile. Pushing himself off from the tree bark, he started approaching the orange-wearing ninja, who was bashfully rubbing the back of his head. When did Naruto start wearing fox ears? Oh well, he's probably just being his usual self. Though I have to say it fits him quite well, Kakashi thought to himself, stopping a distance from the boy. Still holding onto that smile of his, surprised that neither Sakura nor Sasuke said anything about his ears. Are they that willingly not going to be friends with the boy? Hey Kakashi-sensei, isn't it the student's job to inform his sensei of any outside jutsu training? Sakura asked, leering towards Naruto, at the same time causing him to flinch from the looks he was getting. Naruto honestly didn't know he needed to inform Kakashi about anything relating to jutsu training. He was told by Miya-sensei that if you're working on a jutsu that you alone don't want anyone to find out, then both the sensei and student must come to an agreement and respect each other's wishes. Thanks a lot, Sakura. I really wanted to surprise everyone with this jutsu. But no, you have to go and open that mouth of yours. Naruto thought to himself, seeing how Kakashi was started to consider about that notion from Sakura. That is true, but it is also true that a ninja must always keep his or her own little closet secrets, Sakura. You might never know what they are hiding, he explained with a dark tone to his voice. Okay. Then his face changed to being that eye smile again, making the girl's eyes go into saucers, and nodded her shaking head. PFF whatever. The loser is a loser no matter what jutsu he learns or master over the years. There's still nothing compared to an Uchiha, Sasuke responded by getting into a battle position. Figuring that Kakashi would want someone to test out Naruto's new jutsu ability. Sighing in annoyance, Kakashi just shrugged his arms and decided to let the boys let their anger out for now. He was curious about what jutsu Naruto had learned as well. Since none of the shops or villagers treat the boy with any respect or treat him like a human he is. Alright then, Naruto and Sasuke, he asked the two boys by facing at their direction. You both will use jutsus, alright? Naruto, you use that jutsu you were talking about earlier. If you perform it correctly and it somehow overcomes Sasuke's jutsu, I'll let you continue training on it by yourself. He explained to the boy, who grinned happily and then blinked his eyes from the next thing Kakashi said. But if you can't control the jutsu, you will have to stop training it if I see if it's too dangerous for both the team and you. Now understanding why Kakashi-sensei was being worried about this jutsu now made sense. It may be AC rank jutsu that he read in the scroll, but any type of jutsu in a ninja's arsenal can be deadly to anybody and anything surrounding the user, including their teammates. Alright, now go, shouted Kakashi. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. Sasuke cried out by leaping up into the air and forming hand seals quicker than the eye could see. He brought his finger near his mouth and inhaled a lot of air into his lungs, at the same time blowing long and hard, creating a massive fireball jutsu that is easily AC rank jutsu, but with a lot of force was used in it. Shit, is Sasuke actually going to harm Naruto? I better think of something, and fast, in case Naruto won't be able to counter it with his jutsu. Kakashi thought to himself, silently making some hand seals behind his back, just watching the outcome of the battle that is taking place. Alright Sasuke, you are so amazing and powerful, screamed Sakura, which Naruto's ears twitched a bit from the sense of danger coming his way. Grinning out his fox-like smile, he quickly started forming the hand seal of rat, horse, bird, and rabbit. Water style. Bubble bomb jutsu, shouted Naruto, causing Kakashi to widen his eyes in shock and letting go of his hand seal that would have interrupted Sasuke. Fire jutsu. Then watched Naruto pulled back his hands to his left side, charging and flowing all the chakra around him into his hands that were glowing with a blue aura to show his chakra. Then after he was done with the flow of chakra, he started separating his hands apart, while in between them was a blue bubble forming with slight ripple here and there to show that there is hardly any control behind the jutsu, but still functional to be used. The fireball jutsu was suddenly getting closer and closer to Naruto. Shaking out of his dazed state, Kakashi decided that he saw enough and planned to get Naruto out of there before any damage could be done. Before he could move, Naruto thrust his hands forward and shoot out a powerful gush of water that erupted from the bubble itself, causing the poor boy to go flying backwards and slam up against a tree. At that moment, the powerful gush of water broke through the fireball jutsu and caused everyone's jaws to hit the ground at the same time. Sasuke went flying backwards and landed hard on the ground with a loud thud, causing Sakura to scream and run towards Sasuke. You baka. You could have hurt Sasuke with that damn jutsu of yours. Sasuke-kun, are you alright? Sakura asked, causing Kakashi to just groan out in frustration. He really should do something about her crazy obsession with the boy. Running towards the blonde ninja in worriment and actually being proud at the same time, which was an odd combination. More importantly was, where did Naruto learn that kind of jutsu, and how ironic that it was an Uzumaki clan jutsu too. I should have a talk with Naruto about this with the third Hokage. While maybe see if Mia could help train him. Since she's a bit more familiarized with this type of jutsus, he thought to himself and helped Naruto up from the ground, dusting him off and checking over any damages that he received. Seeing the boy smiling up at him with his fox ears lying against his head, chuckled and said, "Hey, I guess I still need some work on the jutsu, but did you see how it beat Sasuke's fire jutsu? It was totally awesome," he exclaimed, causing Kakashi to eye smiled while backhanding Sasuke, who was rushing in towards Naruto with a kunai in the face. Forgetting that Kakashi was right there helping the boy out, he looked towards the down Sasuke, who was holding his nose from the punch. Letting out a small sigh, he turned to Naruto. "Naruto, I think you better get going. I'll try and calm down Duck Butt and Banshee here for a while, okay? Oh, and good job with the jutsu. I hope you won't mind sharing how you obtain it with me, Mia and the third," he asked with a sensei maturity but also showing some concern behind his voice. Bashfully looking down and kicking the dirt a bit, he nodded and also agrees with Kakashi sensei. He originally was going to ask them about the Uzumaki scroll that he found and hopefully learn about his heritage and more about the Uzumakis. XXX. After everything that happened with his teammates and winning against Sasuke's fireball jutsu with his bubble bomb jutsu, he felt that his day couldn't get any more perfect than it was already. He just couldn't hold in his excitement and started jumping and leaping over villagers, shouting out to the world that he beat Sasuke's fireball jutsu with his own, along with the villagers screaming at him to shut up, demon, or dream on, demon. He didn't care what they said, no one, and he means no one, can bring his day down. Taking a huge leap into the air without watching where he was going, opened his eyes in panic from the person he crashed into, with blue eyes meeting lavender pale eyes. All you heard was an eep and a thud. Everything was dark for Naruto, wondering what the hell just happened. He then started feeling around with his hands, trying to understand where he was, and felt something soft and round. When there is something that is this soft and round, it's usually. Oh shit. He suddenly shot up straight and panicking at the person who he just landed on. It was none other than Hinata Hyuga. The girl was covering her chest and wasn't daring to look at the person who had managed to grab them. Hugging the brown overcoat tightly to her, she slowly opened one eye and blinked at the person who was stuttering and blabbering out an apology to her. It was Naruto-kun. She blurted out, feeling all the blood in her body rushing to her face. She couldn't believe it. The last person she expected to meet this late in the evening. That an Naruto-kun touched my, wait. Something about being sorry, she thought to herself, blinking, and was suddenly being pulled by the blonde ninja. What shocked her most were the fox ears that were on his head. "I know what will make it up to you, Hinata. A nice dinner of ramen. Farewell from me," colliding into ya. He beamed at her with a slight blush on his face. Taking and guiding her to the ramen shop, and hopefully she won't freak out like how woman usually did and beat him down badly before he could explain what happened. Though we all know, secretly Hinata would want Naruto to do something like that to her, secretly of course. XXX. After arriving at the ramen shop for the second time that day, Naruto and Hinata were getting along with each other very well. Telling each other stories and things they did with their teams. Wow, really, Hinata, who would have thought you were protective over cinnamon buns? Naruto asked out loud, causing the girl to playfully hit Naruto on the shoulder, giggling with a smile. Getting Naruto to close his eyes, remembering the dream of her showing the beauty within her, also some assets, he mentally slapped himself, telling himself that he wasn't a pervert. That and he didn't want to ruin the conversation he is having with Hinata. It's true, Naruto-kun, seeing Kiba and Akamaru eating my last cinnamon bun. I accidentally freaked out and attacked the two. She quietly said, looking away from the love of her dreams with a blush. thinking that he might find her strange for doing that to Kiba over some food that she really likes. But then widen her eyes from Naruto saying, "It's all right, Hinata," he said while putting his hands behind his head. With blue eyes staring at her lavender eyes with his huge grin. "I would have done the same thing with ramen. If you think about it, you're like me with cinnamon buns," he exclaimed, waving his arms out to emphasize his point, earning more giggles and laughter from Hinata, who covered her mouth to keep her laughter at a decent noise level. Naruto-kun, is it all right to touch your ears?" she asked with a bashful look to the boy, who blinked in confusion and then smiled. He figured that Hinata probably wanted to do what the little girl did earlier. So leaning his head down a bit, he felt Hinata's smooth hand carefully touch his ears, causing Naruto to let out a small purr which earned a kawaii from the girl, who at the same time started rubbing his ears affectionately. After a while she got that out of her system and pulled away from the boy. She tilted her head to the side, wondering if he felt good from that, and then blushed when he said, "It felt really wonderful when you did that." He then blushed from just admitting that, which in turn caused Hinata to blush, with the both of them looking away from each other. "All right, Hinata. This is your chance, it's now or never," she thought to herself, and let out a shaky breath of air, turned to Naruto, feeling the stuttering picking back up. At the same time the heat on her face was rising. "NNN Naruto KK-kun, if it www will be alright. That why you could come over to my house tomorrow?" she asked while closing her eyes tightly, trying to fight the fainting spell that was starting to creep up on her. Feeling someone putting a hand on her chin caused her to let out an eep, then snap her eyes open, to see a smiling Naruto looking back at her, and nodded to her offer. "Sure thing, Hinata, I'll come and visit you, during the morning or day?" he asked, seeing the girl getting a huge hopeful smile, and hugged the boy tightly to her, causing him to blush at the feeling of her chest rubbing against his elbow. Don't be a pervert, he thought to himself, and trying to figure out why Hinata is making him feel like this. Thank you, Naruto. Come to my house near 11 a.m. okay? She said excitedly while shaking his hands up and down, to which the boy said he would be there on time, and blushed from Hinata actually kissing him on the forehead, and heard the girl eep from what she did. Quicker than he could blink, she was already half out from the village, but she then turned around and shouted towards Naruto with a genuine smile. "Oh, and Naruto, I really love the fox ears," she exclaimed out loud, and left. Hey, seeing Hinata smiled like that makes me feel funny, and glad that she liked my fox ears. Then everything went silent as his arm that was behind his head reached up to the top of his head, and feeling something new that had never been there before, his eyes slowly opened and the smile disappeared from his shock expression with wide eyes. "Nanii, I've got fox ears," he screamed while running down the streets of Konoha, creating a huge dust cloud behind him with a crow flying by. The big debate for today was like every other debate and arguments that plagued the ninja side of the council. We should not let the demon do as he pleases. He is ruining the honor of our hero the fourth by running around causing mischief. We should kill him while we still have the chance. Shut up. The third Hokage yelled out, quieting the entire room to silence while he lifted the white and red cage hat. Rubbing his temples from the migraine he gets whenever the subject that gets brought up in these meetings is, Naruto did this, Naruto did that. Honest to Kami, where the hell do they get these kinds of insights and information from? For the sake of all that is holy, the boy doesn't even enter anywhere near their town district or anywhere near their houses. Then again, they probably purposely go out of their way to spy on the boy to come up with bad excuses and reasons of killing/getting rid of him. Before we continue on to why we are really here, are there any other questions or requests that do not involve Naruto in any shape, form, or presence? The third asked, leering out towards the civilian side of the council, seeing a few hands raised and a whole lot that weren't. Alright then, what are your requests? A pink-haired woman stood up, tapping some papers onto the desk in front of her, and cleared her throat. Well, my type of request does involve Naruto in a way, Hokage, but nothing is this killing him or banishing him. But more concern for his safety, she started to explain, seeing how Sarutobi was just absent-mindedly tapping his fingers together, unfazed for anything that Sakura's mother will inform him. Stretching out the shirt around her neck and breathed out, making sure to carefully time this right and make it not sound like that it is to prevent the demon bastard from improving his skills or banishing him from the village. Well, it has come to my attention from what my daughter Sakura explained to me, that Naruto viciously attacked Sasuke during their time off using an unknown jutsu. She said, feeling proud that Naruto would get in trouble for harming the last Uchiha in the village, getting murmurs and whispers from the civilian council, along with the elders just shaking their heads at the performance, or at least that what she wanted to think. Hiashi, the Hyuga clan head, closed his white eyes, folded his arms, and connecting his hands in his white robe, thought through the information that she gave out while opening one eye towards a man with his hair styled like a pineapple, who nodded in his direction, understanding that there were a few loose ends in the story that they were being told. Letting out a low sigh and shook his head, he really wished that he hadn't cancelled Hinata's somewhat invitation for Naruto to come to the clan household. Deep down he really cared for the boy and noticed how any time Hinata was around him, she changed ever so slightly and showed more courage and determination that came from her mother. Then again, he never actually said he cancelled the visit, did he? Oh well, if he didn't, then by all means, let Hinata enjoy herself with Naruto and Hanabi. Yeah, he can definitely see a nightmare happening once he enters the house. So I figure that it will probably be in our best interest that Naruto was to be removed from the squad, so this little conflict between him and Sasuke won't rise to an unhealthy fight between the two. She finished, feeling proud for the story, an excuse to keep the boy from advancing, or at least keeping the last Uchiha alive, and that the demon brat wouldn't be killing the holy of the elite clan. Some of the ninja side of the council were all thinking it through in their heads and carefully examining the clues that were given to them. Sume, the Inuzuka clan head of the group, just hissed and ignored the request of removing Naruto from the team. Hell, if the boy did beat the Uchiha pup, then by all means, good for him. That will lower the overinflated ego of the spoiled boy. Although she was curious about this jutsu that the little pup had used against Sasuke. Shikaku, the Nara clan head, was a very intelligent man with an IQ over 200. They said Naras are very intelligent clan, but tended to see most things as being too troublesome, or just don't have the motivation to do the things that aren't deemed troublesome. He held his hands together with fingers touching softly to another with his eyes close, reading into the information that was given to them, and kept coming up with solutions that Naruto and Sasuke will someday take their rivalry a little too far. It could also endanger the villagers and their own teammates. But he also saw through the somewhat white lie and truth within the story. Mrs. Haruno wanted to hold back Naruto's ninja skills and keep him away from any improvements for the near future. Second, she probably knew about the future Chunin exams that were coming closer and closer by the week. That, or she just wants her daughter to be with Sasuke alone. So many variables that it's just too troublesome to even bother with it. Oh well, even they did got Naruto off of Squad 7. The Hokage can always go with his original plan and put Naruto with either Team Miyukuno or Team Asuma. Since Ino, Haku and Miya enjoy the boy's presence along with Asuma, Shikamaru and Choji, who will gladly take him under their wing. Then again, it might be better to put Naruto with Team Miyukuno. Sarutobi, who is looking around at the council in the room, which was filled with hush whispers along with debating and making out some points to what Miss Haruno said. Leaning back on his chair, he thought it through himself. Lately, from the reports he had been getting from Kakashi, Sasuke had been threatening and attacking Naruto as of late on the account a jutsu clash they did yesterday. Apparently from what Kakashi said, young Naruto performed a water jutsu that Kakashi hasn't gotten time to teach Naruto on the account of the council keeping the sensei on a leash for training just Sasuke. The water jutsu that Naruto performed was very rare and thought to not exist after the destruction of the Whirlpool village. Sarutobi couldn't help but chuckle from all the praise Kakashi gave to the orange-wearing ninja and requested that whatever scroll Naruto found for this jutsu it be important for the Hokage to start explaining things to Naruto about his heritage, along with finding someone to help the boy to learn how to control his chakra better. This he didn't like that well. He kept the secret of Naruto's heritage and clan for over 12 years. There were so many times he wanted to tell the boy, but just could not tell him. Especially with whom his mother and father are and the enemies that will probably go after him once news of his heritage will be given out. Ahem, I'm sorry, did you say something, Kaharu? Sarutobi asked to one of the elders while shaking his thoughts out of the problem for now. He will probably tell Naruto after the Chunin exams is over. The old woman pursed her lips to the side a bit, knowing how once the Hokage goes into his train of thought, a very deep one mind you, it becomes a bit difficult to get him to respond. And since the matter at hand was Naruto, Sarutobi caring and love for the boy meant no bounds along with the village and Konohamaru. I was saying, Hokage, that half of the civilian side of the council is waiting for your decision on removing Naruto from Team 7, so this way Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno won't get harm from any disputes the boy has with his teammates. She explained while leaning back in the chair a bit. If you ask me and Homura, we believe that it could very well benefit for Naruto to leave Team 7 if this dispute, and I'm sure everyone here agrees, takes to a level where we have no control over the two boys from harming the others and villagers alike. She explained, getting some nods of approval and mixed feelings about the situation of said two boys. Sarutobi, looking at his old friends, saw a small knowing smirk on their faces in his direction. He couldn't help but sigh. Damn, they are good. I see what they did there. And they're right, if this fight between the two boys were to scale to that level, might be better to actually take Naruto off from the team and put him on a different squad to watch over him. Kaharu, Homura, you still got it after all these years, he thought and chuckled to himself. Alright then, we all agree of Naruto being removed from Team 7, after the Chunin exams of course. So this way the boy will have at least a whole 2 months to stay with his teammates. He asked around the room, seeing how pleased the civilians were while at the same time half of the ninja side was displeased about this agreement. Then it is done. Okay, speaking of Chunin exams, and know that if I was to forbid Naruto from entering the test, then how can he prove his worth to the village? That he isn't this demon that you all believe to be. He quickly added and raised his voice to shut up the civilians' side that were all sweat drop and raise their hands defenselessly. Hey, the damn demon brat can go and get himself killed in the exams by all means, but if he does prove to be not the demon fox, then they have got a lot of apologizing to do. Nah, they just wanted to decapitate the boy's head and mount it on their walls. Once the explanation and proper events were being told about the upcoming Chunin exams along with the cage of the Land of Winds that was also taking part of the event as well, since his children were going to compete in the exams that is taking place here in Konoha. While also getting some of the civilians to open up their vendors to everyone, that even included Naruto. He then warned them that if he were to find out that any mistreatment becomes or befalls on Naruto, they can go and kiss their business goodbye. Though we have to ask one more thing from you, Hokage, announced Mrs. Haruno, who had both hands under her chin in a thinking poise. Seeing Sarutobi nod in her direction, she took this as her cue to continue on what she was about to say. My daughter brought up a very interesting fact about Naruto having fox ears on his head. Now I know he is a prankster and all, since we all have been victims of said pranks. which she just cover her forehead a bit more with her hair, seeing everyone nodding and agreeing that they have been targets of the boys' pranks. But this raised a lot of questions in the room, and that is mostly the fox ears. Have you heard anything about this? Or a jutsu that could make the boy have fox ears? Sarutobi blinking his eyes from this new, odd information which seemed to follow Naruto a lot lately. This news about fox ears on the boy's head was definitely new to him. Actually, Kakashi wrote about it in his reports. Damn, he thought, how the hell did he miss that? I was probably informed but neglected to read about it. But even then, the closest thing to a jutsu that will give fox-like ears that I know of would be Mia Hyuga's summoning contract, and I will say this, she isn't planning to teach anyone, not even her students, that jutsu unless she deems them worthy. He explained, to which everyone started nodding their heads. Okay, just wanted to make sure, that's all. Mrs. Haruno announced. Once the meeting was over and everyone started to leave the room, Hiyashi, who was about to go out through the doors, suddenly got called. If you can wait a moment, Hiyashi, I wanted to discuss some things before you go, asked the Hokage, to which Hiyashi couldn't help but smile, knowing that Sarutobi knew about Naruto visiting his house today from Hinata's invitation. Turning around, he faced the man who kept smiling to the Byakugan user. If there is anything at all that you need, Hokage, I will try and answer as much as possible. Hiyashi spoke up while bowing down and back up to show respect to Sarutobi, who chuckled and wave off the formality he gave off. I heard that Naruto was invited by young Hinata yesterday. The response he got was a chuckle and a nodding Hyuga. I'll bet it took a lot out of Hinata to do that, huh? He joked, which Hiyashi couldn't help but express some laughter to the Hokage. It was truly interesting to see Hinata passing out right when she came through the door. Before we could worry if she got attacked, some of the servants were laughing a bit loud from Hinata saying that she finally invited Naruto over. Course I would have cancelled it from having this meeting. But I figure give Hinata a chance, you know, he said, smiling at the same time not making eye contact from the Hokage, who proceeded by patting the clan head's shoulders. That is very kind of you, and yeah, I remember how shy you were to asking your wife out at the time. So anyway, I believe you know what my request is then. With a nod and a small grin and answer. Yes, you want me to see if these fox ears are his alone and not the Kyuubi's, correct? I'll see what I can do. If I can't get to my house in time though, I will then ask one of the servants to see if there was anything out of the normal. Quote, that's all I asked. Now ahem, if you excuse me, Kakashi wanted to explain something about Naruto's jutsu he performed that stopped Sasuke's fireball jutsu. He explained. With both of them bowing, they left the room to head off towards their destinations. This could be a little bit troublesome. If the boy and Sasuke were to have a rivalry of that magnitude, then the village would be in danger, said a man covered in bandages, just looking around the empty council room, devising a plan to keep the civilians from harming the poor boy or get in a secret notion of banishment. His name is Danzo, a long-term teammate and friend of Sarutobi. These two worked in a secretive sort of way. For example, Danzo devised an organization called Root Anbu, under the third's nose, and said organization got disbanded from the use of forcing someone to lose their memories or become mindless drones that work and serve only under his commands. He was a bit furious about this, but then understood why. No ninja is able to show their true strength by taking away their will and soul. So he kept Root up and running even from the Hokage, but made sure that he actually treats them the way Hokage treats his Anbu units. Now Danzo had nothing against Naruto at all, and he could say he was very proud that the boy found a jutsu that could fight back a powerful fireball jutsu that is from an Uchiha's blood. A lot of thought process was going through his head, wondering if Naruto found a scroll sometime during his mission to Wave. He had read the reports and had studied it for any misleading information. Apparently neither Kakashi nor Mia described Naruto performing any type of jutsu like that against the mind-controlled Haku. He would have to ask the Yamanaka then, since she was still conscious at the time and had supported the blonde-hair ninja. Now another thing had raised a question. Leaning over the desk in front of him, folding his hands together. He was curious what Miss Haruno meant by the Jinchuriki having fox ears on his head. Would have been more helpful if her useless daughter gave more intel than just have fox ears. Sensing a nearby presence, he shifted his head slightly to the right. Did you find our Hokage to be? He asked to the tall man wearing a blank mask. Hi, and the information that was giving today is true. Young Uzumaki has what looks like orange fox ears on the top of his head. Also, while gathering intel from the villagers that a little girl who scratched his ear yesterday told me they felt real, if my opinion can be given, sir. The man asked, which Danzo nodded his approval. It is just like the third Hokage said. They act just like the after effects of Mia's summoning jutsu by giving her real fox ears and a tail, although there were no tails that could be proven. Alright, thanks for the information. Keep gathering details from Uzumaki. I'm starting to believe there's something else in the works for him to get those. Oh, and congrats on the baby. Mizu, right? To which he got a nod. Ah, okay, you're dismissed. Say hi to the missus for me, he said, seeing the man chuckle a bit and shushing away. He then looked towards the door where Hokage and Hiashi left. Maybe we should put Naruto Uzumaki on that team. Things just got a bit more interesting. XXX. With Naruto at the Hyuga clan household, Naruto let out a long drawn-out whistle, seeing the clan's gates and the Hyuga guards standing in front of them unmoving. He knew Hinata lived at such a place before when he was young. But actually seeing it in person is kind of intimidating from first glance. Don't eat the rice balls. One of the Hyuga chuckled out when Naruto went to pass them, taking a glance at the Hyuga, who quickly looked away and back into that statue-like form. He just shrugged his shoulders and took the suggestion in mind while he entered the gates. He couldn't believe how beautiful it is on the inside, with pottery flowers line up in sets of twos and in rows on each side of the walkway. Couple walks ahead he could see what looked like a koi fish pond with a small red wooden bridge that lead to the main house door. The house itself looked like one of those Chinese mansions that he had read about in mangas and books at the book stands. Taking a deep breath and hoping that he doesn't look out of place the fox ears on his head. He couldn't believe that nothing worked or that there were no jutsus that could hide them. He had stayed up half the night yesterday trying to figure out how the hell to get rid of them. Only to fail and realize that jutsu he used and read up on said it was permanent and that no henge will be able to hide the said jutsu effects. Oh well, at least Hinata liked them, he thought with a goofy grin. The scratching and rubbing she gave to his ears were very nice and affectionate. Don't eat the rice balls. He heard the Hyugas whisper to him, causing him to turn to them. Only to see that they weren't standing in front of the gate and just knocked on the door. While said two Hyugas were holding in their chuckles, standing on guard duty was tiring sometimes, but ever since Naruto came by and had gotten tricked by some students in class, saying that Hinata was captured by the Hyugas, at the same time informing him that she was a princess who was in need of rescuing. When the boy came up to the guards, they were surprised at the confidence he showed and announced to them that he will save Princess Hinata from the evil clutches of the Hyugas. The two guards just blinked and raised an eyebrow at the boy, to only realize that it must be a game he was playing. Only at the end, after having a fake fight with the boy, to enter while actually succeeded in evading all of the Hyugas in the compound. Minus Hiashi, of course. Little Naruto somehow avoided the Byakugan eyes and managed to reach the Hyuga gates, only to get caught by little Neji, Hinata's cousin, who saw the boy enter the house and wanted to play along with the boy and said that he was hired to keep watch on Princess Hinata from outsiders. Boy, those were the days. They really wished the orange-clad ninja would visit more often. They had fun with the boy. How long you think it will take for something wrong to happen? Asked the second guard who was trying his best to hold in his laughter. I say once Hanabi gets involved, that's when things will start to get hectic. The other replied, joining with his friend in trying to hold in their laughter. Knocking on the door and waiting for anyone to answer, Naruto started roaming his eyes around to check out the scenery and remembered the good time he had here when he was tricked into thinking that Hyugas were evil, only to find out they are a very fun bunch to hang out with. Well, minus the elders and some who gave him that kill the demon look. But Hinata, her father, and half of the clan really enjoyed his presence and said that he was fun to hang out with. Of course, he had only visited the one time and had kept his distance ever since he heard that Hinata was almost kidnapped by some ninjas, with some of the villagers blame him for her bad luck. He had gone to apologize to Hiyashi a week later to find out the guy was confused about the apologies and just comforted the boy by saying that it wasn't his fault and surprisingly, said that if it wasn't for his infiltration into the Hyuga house and having all the clan members alerted from his playful escapade, they wouldn't have been able to save Hinata if they weren't all alarmed that somebody could get past the all-seeing Byakugan, at the same time encouraging the boy to hang out with Hinata much as possible. Course that part was the hardest. Considering the teachers all resented me, maybe Hinata's dad might know of the scroll also. He thought to himself, adding more people to his very, very short list of who might know about the Uzumaki scroll. Hearing the door opening and a Hyuga woman looking down at the boy with confusion and tilt of her head, Naruto grinned up to her and smiled. Hi, is Hinata home? She wanted me to visit and I think I am a little late. He explained, bashfully rubbing the back of his head to see the Hyuga woman said kawaii while she showed him inside. Not to fret, Uzumaki-san, you arrive a bit earlier than expected, so we have been waiting for you just in case. Hinata will be arriving soon to meet you. If you will excuse me, I have some duties to do. She explained and bowed to him and left, but not before saying, oh, and don't eat the rice balls. He was about to ask why, only to see that she was gone. He scratched the side of his cheeks with a raised eyebrow, chuckling nervously from all this talk about not eating the rice balls. He then heard some thumping of footsteps, then an eep from the left. He turned his attention to the right and slightly blushed. There's Hinata breathing a bit and hanging off her knees, her black long-sleeve top hung a bit, showing a small view of her cleave. He shook his head and started mentally slapping himself. He was not a pervert, he kept telling himself in his head over and over. But Hinata acting too cute like that, he can't keep his eyes away from her. Nah, Naruto-kun, you really came to visit. She happily said, shaking hands with the boy, who nodded and accepted the handshake. Of course, Hinata, I always keep my promises. Wow, so this is where you live, huh? It's been a while since I was here. He said, taking his shoes off before he went to step on the clean wooded floors. Hinata blushed and looked away, surprised. Naruto still remember the day he pretended to rescue her from this house. Anyo, you want a tour of the house? She asked nervously and then smiled. Seeing how eager the boy's head nodded before they went to take the tour, she was confused of why the fox ears were still there. Seeing the confused look on her face, he bashfully rubbed the back of his head. Apparently this jutsu I used turned out to have a permanent after effect, and I can't seem to dispel it at all. He raised his voice a bit and let out a disgruntled sigh, only to hear Hinata giggle slightly, making him shift his eyes up to her lavender ones. Well, if it's any consolation, Naruto-kun, I think it makes you look really cute, especially with your whisker marks. She exclaimed while her face fully turned red and felt like fainting right on the spot, only to get hugged by Naruto, causing her face to turn an even darker shade of red, and then smiled when he thanked her and pulled away. Right, the tour. Well, come on, Naruto-kun. Wonder if you will remember most of the place. She asked and wondered, with Naruto saying he will try his best to answer if he did or did not remember of the place. Walking side by side down through the halls with Hinata showing and explaining some of the places they went through as kids, only to be ignorant about a little girl who peeked out from behind the wall. To see her sister walking with a blonde boy in an orange jumpsuit that really showed itself with her sister's long-sleeve black shirt and pants that she wears when she was training by herself. So she decided to follow them and see what was up. After some time during the tour, Hinata and Naruto would joke and laugh with each other, saying how some of the things they ran into or accidentally made some messes with some loose paints and cleaning supply that Naruto tumble over and trip over, finding an escape route from the house with Hinata trying her best to find some exits too. Only for them to always end up at either her room, the garden, or her dad's study room. The two were having a good time with each other. Naruto was even surprised himself at how much he was enjoying the tour. Since he wasn't one to be patient and more outgoing, was having a blast. Though he couldn't help but that they were being followed, so after the two made a turn, he stops Hinata for a bit, surprising the girl by telling her that someone was following them. Taking a peek around the corner so that they wouldn't be spotted, Hinata let out a small giggle and explained to Naruto that the little Hyuga girl wearing a gray t-shirt and long gray pants was her sister Hanabi. Naruto had to grin at the curious girl who was following them, probably wondering who her older sister's friend was and why he was here. Was the thoughts that were going through the little girl's head, since it was unheard of for an outsider to visit the Hyuga household. Hearing their stomachs growling, Hinata decided that they should go ahead and eat lunch, while the meantime told Naruto that if Hanabi came by to get along with her. With a playful salute to his purple-haired tour guide, he jokingly said, causing Hinata to earn some more smiles, and led them towards the dining hall with Hanabi right behind them. XXX. Now here he was sitting Indian style at the small table he was told by Hinata to wait patiently at for her to get the food ready, and from the scents he smelled he could tell she was making ramen for him and cinnamon buns for herself. He couldn't help but rubbed his ears in bashfulness. Hinata is doing all this for me. I know I'm a guest, but she shouldn't go through all this trouble for me. I know. Maybe if Kurenai-sensei allows it, I could ask if Hinata wants to train with me tomorrow. Now, should I try and teach her some of the Uzumaki jutsu? He thought to himself and crossed his arms, tilting his head left and right, thinking and complimenting if he should teach one or not. Why not, he thought. Sooner or later he will have to teach someone the clan jutsu sometime in the future. He heard a small squeak of cute coming from the halls and knew who exactly it was. Leaning to the side a bit, he saw Hanabi quickly hiding behind the sliding door, afraid that she got caught from the boy. It's all right, Hanabi, you can come out. I know you're there. Hinata told me about ya. The boy called out to the young girl, who slowly peeked her head from the door and decided to walk in with the Hyuga manner, her pale eyes staring at the boy who was just grinning towards the young girl. Hey, hi there, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. He announced, holding his hand out for a handshake, which the girl grinned a bit and accepted the offer. Greetings, Naruto-san. I wasn't aware that you would be visiting. I would have dressed more properly for the occasion, she informed while sitting down across from him, staring at his ears, all the while wondering and curious if they were real or not. Yeah, they're real. Damn, jutsu backed on me, he said truthfully, which Hanabi moved her head up in understanding. She read up on the subject before and felt a little scared of what would happen if a jutsu would backfire. So Hanabi, what are you into these days? He asked with a sincere smile, causing the girl to blink a bit and let out a small blush by looking down. Nobody ever asked her that question. To be perfectly honest, she didn't know how to reply. I'm into, well, bird watching. She blushed, feeling ashamed for such a hobby that she got into. Then blinked at Naruto for still holding that smile of his. Cool, sort of like Shikamaru with his cloud watching, though yours sounds more entertaining than watching clouds. He joked while said boy in question sneezed. Meanwhile with said boy, looking around him only seeing that Choji was next to him eating his chips, he then mumble under his breath. What a drag. Back with Naruto and Hanabi at the dining room. Hanabi couldn't help but express more of her grin to Naruto. I see why Oni-chan likes the boy, he makes you feel happy by just being around him. He said the jutsu backfired on him, right? So maybe that means there's a way to cancel it out. She thought to herself using her Byakugan eyes while staring at a confused Naruto who saw Hanabi using her clan's bloodline to see his from what Hinata explained to him during the tour chakra points that were inside of him and can see through anything. Which brought up a question. Hey Hanabi, I have a question. He asked to the girl who blinked in confusion. Yes Naruto-san. The Byakugan can see everything, right? Yes, that what our eyes can do when using our Kekkei Genkai. Why? Well, not to sound embarrassing, but does that also means that you can see through people's clothes? He asked with a blush, at the same time causing Hanabi to quickly close her eyes and covering them with a deep blush on her face, shaking her head, not realizing that he could be right. The Byakugan technique can see everything and even chakra points, but that also means the person without clothes. Kya, I am never looking at Otu-san the same way again with these on. She cried out in a slight panic, hearing how Naruto tried to calm her down, panicky, saying that he wasn't really sure if it was true or not and that he heard kids whisper about it at school. Only for him to deadpan from the chuckles he was getting from the little girl who pointed at him with tears of laughter in her eyes. Sorry Naruto-san, I couldn't help but joke with ya. No, the Byakugan can't see through people's clothes. She explained. Although doesn't help that we can see every outline of their bodies though. I was meaning to ask Otu-san about that. She then blinked her eyes and started leaning back from a grinning Naruto. So Hyugas do like to play jokes. Well Hanabi, time to teach you a lesson. He then jumped to the girl and started tickling her playfully with her crying out in laughter and playfully calling out for help. Hinata, hearing the disturbance, came rushing out to the dining hall with the tray of food to find that Naruto and Hanabi were tickling, wrestling each other, trying to get one to submit, only to stop and look up at the girl who flinched from their stares at the same time before making a mess, put the tray down on the table and jumped the girl. Joining the tickling fest, everyone was having a blast and couldn't stop from what they're doing, only to have Neji coming rushing in from the cries of playful helps and laughter, rushing and slamming the slider door open, froze in place at the same time, causing the three to stop in a very unpredicament position. Hinata laying on her back facing up towards Neji, Naruto on top of her where his hands were mere inches from her chest, with Hanabi on top across Naruto. Her pants moved a bit slightly, almost showing more than Neji wanted to think off. His eyebrows were twitching very profusely. Naruto, what do you think you are doing? He asked with a deathly tone in his voice, for said boy's fox ears lay flat against his head from the tone of death. He gulped and chuckled nervously. Tickling Hanabi and Hinata in a tickle fight. He said innocently. Hiyashi, after finally getting some things done and getting some clan business all settled, walked inside the house and started heading towards the dining room, only to jump aside from a screaming Naruto shouting out apologies to Neji and explaining something he couldn't understand from the girl-like shrills, while he watched Neji come running behind him with Byakugan blazing, threatening to kill Naruto for what he was doing with Hinata and Hanabi, to have said Hinata following behind Neji telling him that they were only joking around. He just let out a happy sigh, glad his family was once again being lively, and entered the dining hall. Then laughed a bit from Naruto, saying he didn't know his hands were that close to Hinata. He may have joined Neji in the chase if he knew Naruto was going to be a bit frisky with Hinata, but hearing about the tickle fight, he pictured the event in his head and nodded in understanding. Hinata on the ground, Naruto on top of her and in between Hanabi while during the tussle, and freezing in place when Neji charged in, causing Naruto to stop near Hinata's chest, while Hanabi pants probably got pulled slightly from them wrestling. Sitting down next to Hanabi, nodding to her, She looked like she was in deep thought. He just grabbed some food that was placed on the table, reaching for the rice ball. At the same time flinched from Naruto rushing out the door screaming his head off, with Neji grabbing some kunais and started throwing them to Naruto, saying that a special spot will be cut off. "So Naruto has been good to you today, Hanabi?" Hiyashi asked his youngest daughter, who beamed a smile towards her dad at the while nodding. He chuckled and took a quick sip of his drink. "Yes, Otu-san. What are?" she asked innocently, causing Hiyashi to spit out his drink and go into a coughing fit. Never expecting his youngest daughter to ask him that question, at the same time said that Neji Ne-san shouted those words to Naruto for having his hands near Hinata. The one thing that nobody will ever see the head clan do in his years of leading. He fainted from pure shock of Hanabi asking the question. That in a piece of the rice ball he was eating. "Hinata doesn't make good rice balls," was the warning from the guards and servant. It had to be the most hellish week for Naruto, having been in all kinds of predicaments for the past couple of days. First off would have to be the mission in Land of Waves, where his own squad team mistreated and attacked him for just trying to prove his point of being stronger than Sasuke. Then there was Sakura. How she ever turned out like that he will never know. That, and it was a very low blow of her to spit on him and then kick him while he was still recovering from Sasuke's very powerful kick to the face. Never had he felt so powerless or useless. All he wanted to do at that point is to die right there and now after he ran away. But then he remembered all the faces that would be very sad if that were to happen to him. Hinata, Haku, Ino, Kiba, Shino, Shikamaru, Choji, Iruka-sensei, the third Hokage, Miya-sensei, and Kakashi-sensei. Even the people at Ichiraku's would be devastated if the boy were to be Goki or Miya. Although if it hadn't been for Sasuke and Sakura's mistreatment at Tazuna's house, he would have never found the lost village of Uzushiogakure, where the Uzumakis once resided at, and probably his parents as well. He even got luckier to being able to find the secret scroll of the Uzumaki clan's secret jutsu. Though he only skims through a bit of the list and having trouble utilizing the bubble bomb jutsu. He could now see why Kakashi-sensei had told him that he should find someone who was specialized in that type of jutsu. He'd been at it for almost a week now, still making no progress of getting the control down for the jutsu he is trying to perfect. That, and he couldn't keep himself from being blown backwards and crashing into anything that was behind him. Heck, even some help from Hinata had done nothing. The poor girl got a full-blown crash course in what being a human rocket felt like. Though, I wouldn't be lying if I said that the impacts were soft. Naruto, stop that, he thought to himself, shaking his head to get any perverseness out of his mind. In all honesty, he thought both him and Hinata were having trouble somewhat at keeping their chakra control in check for this jutsu. Yup, he showed her the Uzumaki clan's secret scroll and started teaching her how to use one of their clan jutsu, surprisingly after explaining and telling her to not tell anyone, including her dad. Well, at least if he feels like Hiyashi either knows about the Uzumakis or if he is ready to go back there to face the wrath of Poke of Fury Neji. Ever since that tickle fight between Hinata and Hanabi, along with getting to know Hanabi a bit more when he continued his visits and secretly hoping Neji wasn't home. The boy may have been his friend, but sometimes Neji takes paranoia a little too far with his protection of his cousins. Well, back to the point of getting to know the family more, he noticed lately that Hanabi was really into wanting to know what kind of hobbies Naruto was into, along with the fact she too wanted to have those fox ears of his, only to pout a bit when Naruto said that it was a Uzumaki clan secret. Of course he should have not said that out loud to the girl, but seeing her nod in understanding and surprisingly mature for her age for saying, "Ah, a clan secret. Then it's quite alright, Naruto-kun. We Hyugas or clan members in the village know of the importance of clan secrets. Though I really do wish I had those fox ears," Hanabi said, mopping at the end. The boy was surprised to hear her say, "kun," at the end of his name. Then again, he had been a regular visitor there, and dare he say felt like he was always being watched by the little girl who waited in front of the door with her Byakugan on, actively staring at the door. He still felt a little uncomfortable with those eyes of theirs, considering that they can see almost anything and everything in a 360 radius surrounding them, and he could have sworn that Hinata was using them for a different reason when they hang out with each other. Anyway, on his last visit to the Hyuga compound, he found both Hinata and Hanabi out in their training fields for their daily clan air battleship. Course he got scorn and disdain looks from the elders, well, 3 of the elders, the rest just brighten up with smiles to see the boy and how active both girls and Neji were being lately. Hell, even Hiyashi smiled big to the boy and playfully threatened him that if he and his girls were to fight again, to make sure that it was at a low level of normality. The boy was confused at first, then paled after hearing that, while he already knew that his hands had been dangerously close to Hinata's chest, but what he didn't realize was that Hanabi's pants had been pulled down slightly during their tussle. Seeing Hinata lose to Hanabi for the rightful place of clan heir put a bad taste in his mouth for how Hiyashi had to act indifferent between the two girls, praising Hanabi while scolding Hinata for her failure. But boy, did he get a kick at the girl's smiling face that only Hiyashi knew about. Apparently the family members were playing a game to the elders, unknowing eyes that on the same week, Hanabi will suddenly show great skills and strength against Hinata while Hinata tries to not overdo any damage to the young girl. While for the next week Hinata will start overthrowing her younger sister in the skill department, as well as Hanabi purposely not trying to hurt Hinata. It was more brilliant than most of his own pranks, and he had been doing those for years. Bravo is all the word he could describe for their charade against the elders. After watching and witnessing that beautiful display of stage play, Naruto was now walking down the streets with Hinata next to him, both discussing what they should do about the Uzumaki scroll and how they were going to get their chakra control to a degree of mastering the jutsus inside of it. "Have you talked to the Hokage yet, Naruto-kun?" asked Hinata, looking towards the boy of her dreams, and couldn't help but smile from the way he scrounges up his face in that cute thinking pout of his. To add even more to the cuteness, his ears would sometimes twitch or flinch a bit when something blows on them or whenever he was in deep thought. The Konoha streets were bustling and booming with excitement, and preparations were also being put together for the future Chunin exams that was about to start, where all the new Genin ninjas go and test their skills, teamwork, and wits to become the rank of Chunin, also if they have the knowledge and the pledge to one day lead their own squad or team out on missions. This though worried Hinata very much, since her lack of confidence were still building up. She was worried about Naruto not being able to get the rank of Chunin, since his teammates don't necessarily treat him right. A couple of times when she went out with Naruto, they always seemed to run into Sasuke Uchiha, who would demand that Naruto to fight him, only for Naruto to decline and say that he was busy hanging out with Hinata-chan on their daily walks around Konoha. She was on cloud 9 when he announced her name as Chan, while almost fainting from the suffix used of the words. Though she rarely cussed, but it calls for it. Damn. Sasuke did not want to lead up and kept pestering the two during their walk in Konoha, getting unwanting and death-glaring attentions from the villagers. She is no blind fool. She knew how long the villagers mistreated Naruto or scorned the boy for his presence of just being around them made them sick to their stomachs. She never knew why though, and hopefully would someday figure out the reason behind those glares. Thankfully and surprisingly, a female Hyuga along with Haku behind her carrying what looked to be groceries, intervened the situation. In all her life living at the Hyuga compound, she never saw a more beautiful female Hyuga. She heard from the servants and Neji that there was an Anbu Hyuga working for the Hokage under the name of Mia Hyuga, with the description matching too. Shoulder-length blue hair spiking up on the back, her pupil-less cerulean eyes glaring at Sasuke. Her outfit was that of normal kimono jacket over top of a very long-sleeved floral blue dress along with anbu leather pants that reaches just underneath her knees. Mia Hyuga was Hinata's role model. The young girl always wanted to meet her before. Truth be told, she had multiple times during her outings, she just never realized Mia was in her anbu gear hiding in the shadows. Including one day protecting her and Hinata from some drunk villagers who wanted to hurt the girls only to get soaked and blown away by a water dragon jutsu. But seeing her without her anbu gear on and out in the open protecting her and Naruto from Sasuke was amazing, and then it hit her. Mia was Haku's and Ino's sensei. How she never figured this out is beyond her. Shaking herself out of her thoughts and memories of those many encounters with Sasuke, along with Sakura here and there taunting the two, announcing how it was befitting that the two weakest ninjas in the class were always hanging out to make themselves look strong. Boy, did Hinata get kicked out of putting those words in her mouth, since technically a squad is nothing without their teammates, and that even the weakest of ninja can overcome the most powerful ninja in the world with great teamwork and leadership. Though Sasuke ranted about how nobody could defeat an elite Uchiha including the Hyugas or Uzumaki clans. Oh well, that's another argument for later. I was thinking about asking the old man about the scroll. But every time I try and visit him, he seems to be full or way too busy to see me. Hell, I even asked the elders of where he was at and they didn't know half the time. He exclaimed, slapping his arms to his side. Walking down the now decorative street filled with ornaments that were being hung up on the building's outer doors or windows, along with Konoha string flags hanging off from windows' ridges or the roofs. Open doors and welcome mats out on the dirt road. Everyone was busy and getting ready for the Chunin exams, along with the leaf symbol hanging from the shop's street posts. Hinata looking down at the ground along with Naruto, who did the same. Both were really distraught of not finding the third Hokage. Then again, they would expect him to be busy for the big event that was coming soon. Both their senseis gave them applications to enter the Chunin exams along with their teammates, but telling them only to sign the papers if they felt like they were truly ready. Of course, Naruto signed it right away without hesitant moment. Hinata was deciding at first if she should enter or not. Her teammates Kiba and Shino explained to her that she doesn't have to enter if she doesn't want to. At the same understanding that they will wait till next Chunin exams to graduate into Chunins. She signed the paper after getting home and being tackled down to the ground by Hanabi, only for the girl to let out a disappointed sigh. She became attached to Hinata and Naruto's visits so much she would randomly glomp either her or Naruto, then stick with them till either had to leave or go out on a mission. It was a very cute game Hanabi made out of that lately. The reason she signed the papers? Well, thanks to the little firecracker that is Hanabi encouraging her to take the test. At the same time hinting that if she ever catches Naruto she could spy on him with her Byakugan, showing some hidden spots of his. This caused the girl to blush profusely and faint on the spot. While little later with Neji Ni-san explaining to her that she can prove to herself how far she become by taking these exams, while at the same time giving a warning about the survival test of the exams. Hugging both Hanabi and Neji for the encouragement, also hearing how that guy sensei was also entering Neji's team this year. There was no way she will let her cousin advance farther than her, which caused her friendship and bond to grow stronger with Neji, as he smirked and said, "I look forward to our battle then, Hinata-sama. Be warned though, I won't hold back, so you better not as well." Ah well, maybe we could go and find Mia-sensei and ask her about the scroll. Since Kakashi-sensei is busy training Sasuke, I have no one else to go to. Naruto explained while bringing both his hands behind his head, looking up to the sky. Hinata smiled and nodded at the idea he had. Alright then, Naruto-kun, should we go and find her? With a shout of an okay from Naruto, at the same time grabbing her hand. They set off to find the Hyuga sensei and her students at the training fields that Mia told them to look for her at around 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. today. She explained to them that Haku and Ino both wanted to wake up early to get some extra training done before the exams started and humbly invite the two to join them anytime. Or join Haku and Ino whenever she's not around. After some time looking for said training grounds, along with Naruto grabbing the Uzumaki scroll and tucking it away in his bag, they finally found the training ground that Team Miyakuno uses for. It was definitely a beautiful sight if you don't count the small destruction of craters here and there along with shurikens, senbons, and kunais littered all over the place. The two teens let out a short whistle and couldn't believe how much this place was being used. They neglected to see the water dragon jutsu that crashed right in front of them, soaking and washing them away from the training fields. Naruto, Hinata, I am so sorry, I didn't see you guys there, shouted Mia in a very panicked tone once she reached the two teens. She had to let out a nervous chuckle of embarrassment from the glares she was getting from the two of them, along with a confused stare at Naruto's fox ears. I don't recall giving him my fox summoning contract. Nor the fact I doubt he even knows about it, she thought to herself. Once that little incident was over, everyone gathered together on the training field in a single file line of Hinata, Naruto, Haku, and Ino, all staring and waiting for Mia's verdict of the scroll that Naruto had handed to her after some reassurance from Hinata. He couldn't believe the reaction Mia-sensei had just from seeing the word Uzumaki. Heck, the way her hands trembled and slowly gripped the scroll as if she didn't want it to break or fall apart, carefully opened it and started reading through the scroll. So Naruto, Hinata, how long have you two been hanging out? I see you two passing by the flower shop a lot lately. Ino asked while leaning forward with a sly grin on her face, causing Hinata to turn away and poke her two index fingers together, knowing the hint behind that grin. Naruto, facing towards Ino, smiled brightly, causing the girl to blush a bit, and once again he counted another kawaii from yet another girl. But it felt nice hearing it from Haku and Ino. Oh god no, the kawaii have sunken into my mind. Curse you permanent fox ears, why do you doom me so? But yet, it felt really good to hear it from those two. Arg, I have got to get rid of these ears before I become kawaii myself. He thought to himself, seeing that Haku started petting his ears to see if they were actually real or not. Along with more kawaiis from the girls around him, who beamed at him and turned back to look at Mia-sensei. Well Naruto, if it's okay with you, that is, I would like to study upon this scroll a bit more with my friend Sho. All in all, you found yourself a true Uzumaki clan scroll, she said, giving everyone her own version of Naruto's fox-like grin and chuckle from Naruto, shouting hoorays and started twirling Hinata around along with Ino and Haku, causing all girls to blush a bit with their smiles never disappearing. Although, I rather you not show this to the Hokage yet. This caused everyone to widen their eyes at this sudden information from Mia, seeing all their confused look and wondering why she looked down to the ground a bit, biting her lip a bit. Well, it's not that I don't want you to. It's just if the council or word got out that you have this scroll, the civilians can easily say that it's fake and you probably stole it from either the Uchiha compound or the forbidden scroll that was inside the Hokage's office, she announced and explained with a sad tone, causing Naruto to actually look down in thought to think it over with the events she just announced. She's right. The council and the old man could easily think or believe that this forbidden scroll is from his office. If I were to show it to him now, I could probably wind up in Konoha bars. But wait, is it alright to keep it a secret from him? Taking a small glance at Mia-sensei, he noticed how down she looked from the way her eyes were scanning slowly through every details and every pieces of the scroll, to see if it's truly real and not some hoax scroll. Then in the corner of her eye, he saw a tear fall. She's crying. Then she must have met one of my clan members after all. No wonder she tries to protect me a lot in her Anbu gear. Sensing the girl's eyes on him, he shocked Hinata and Haku the most on the account they knew about this mask he wears to hide his real emotions and feelings to the world. Along with also surprising Ino, who couldn't believe how real and pure his face is. It was the look of acceptance and true happiness. Walking up to Mia-sensei with his true smile shocking the Hyuga a lot. He gave his fox-like grin and thumbs up to her with the words of, "Sure thing, Mia-sensei. You can study the scroll more with your friend Sho. I trust you. Believe it," he said to her with pureness in his words, while also adding in a few chuckles to everyone around him by bringing both arms behind his head with open eyes. "Besides that, and it will definitely fit the bill for someone to watch the scroll for me during the Chunin exams." Mia couldn't believe it. Naruto actually trusts her to watch and to study over the Uzumaki scroll for him. While unmasking his true feelings to her, and said with the purest of hearts and the ever so famous catchphrase of her one Uzumaki friend. The words, "believe it," meant so much to her ever since she lost her friend from the Kyuubi attack. To hear Naruto said it must mean he is putting all his trust into her. With a strong proud nod to the boy, she smiled and made an announcement. "All right then, Naruto, and thank you for trusting in me for this task. I will allow you permission to teach my students and Hinata 1C rank jutsu from this scroll, is that okay?" She asked with wink. Knowing how easily excited Naruto gets for learning a new jutsu and hearing how she wanted him to teach Ino and Haku a jutsu from the scroll made him even more excited. That, and if Mia-sensei is allowing it, that mean Haku, Hinata and Ino can actually benefit from the scroll itself. After explaining some things to her and saying how Hinata and him were having trouble completing the bubble bomb jutsu, Mia looked through the scroll of the jutsu and discovered that Naruto missed one very value point and key to finishing the jutsu without blowing yourself away. You have to be a pure water affinity user to complete the jutsu he was about to groan out. But stop when Mia then explained to him that the reason it was difficult for him and a use of those chakra papers to figure out what elements everyone is. He found out the reason for such a powerful backlash from the jutsu is because his wind nature seeps itself into the jutsu to intensify the power outage and destruction ratio. Till then, Mia told him only to use that jutsu for a very tough opponent or when he knows he would fall off from a high cliff. Before she left to leave it to them to train for now. She chose another jutsu for him to try after she heard from Ino that he used a chain-like jutsu to save Haku in a quick demonstration from the boy, who used it effortlessly while tying up all three girls without a problem. Mia had to say she was very impressed and that she knew nobody who could do that, let alone ever seeing it herself. So checking the rank of the jutsu to be surprised that it had no rank or what amount of chakra is supposed to be used. That and the ink was a bit dry for the level of said jutsu, she decided to go ahead and have Naruto to learn one more C rank from the scroll along with the others choosing theirs as well, which were C rank for Naruto. Wind style crescent slashes. This jutsu uses the caster's legs and arms as weapons to enhance their physical abilities and create wind-like crescent blades with each down like karate chops and kicks. The use of their wind affinity also increases their agility for a short period of time. C rank for Hinata. Water-style razor wheels. This jutsu uses the caster's body and arms as a way to direct the water around the user and form razor-sharp wheels from each cartwheel and full motion swinging of arms. The jutsu power depends how close the user is to the opponent and weakens how far away they are from their opponent as well. C rank for Haku. Water style. Icicle waves. The jutsu combines the user wind affinity to cause small rushing of water and then freezing the water into ice while said ice spikes up from the ground. Slow-moving jutsu and not so powerful against fast opponents, but when used being surrounded. Then the caster can create a 360 icicle spikes around them. Uses up more chakra this way, caution is advised. Though there was a downside, Ino couldn't learn any of the jutsu that were listed. Since her element affinity hasn't shown itself yet from the chakra papers, meaning that for now she is a genjutsu ninja or a medic ninja. Feeling a little downcasted, Ino then snapped her fingers and asked if there were any kunai technique in the scroll for poison or any other means to use chakra. Nodding in understanding, Mia looked a bit deeper into the scroll and couldn't find much for Ino taste except for some kenjutsu skills. Which Ino asked, what does kenjutsu mean? Seeing the confusion on Ino's face, Mia smiled and started explaining to Ino that kenjutsu or sword techniques are those for ninjas who specializes in sword play and a very well indulge into the way of the swords. She then explained to the four young ninjas that she uses some kenjutsu in her time during Anbu missions, but the only use for it is to channel her very low knowledge and use of wind styles. Which the only wind style she knows is wind scythe jutsu and air bullet, though it takes a lot more chakra for her to use wind styles since that is her second affinity. Her main affinity is water style. Seeing the way Ino's eyes were shining made her sweat drop a bit, then explained to Ino if she wants to get into kenjutsu she would have to find a blade. A blade that would be best suited for her body and stances that was giving in the scroll, so for now she wants Ino to perfect her clan jutsu and her body reflexes to their fullest. With a determined nod and promise that she will work hard to find a blade for herself, she will do her best. Same went for the others. Alright then, now before any of you tackle these jutsu I want you to practice water walking, okay? She announced, getting a confused look by Hinata and Naruto while nods from Ino and Haku. Chuckling to herself, she then asked Haku and Ino to help and teach the two how to use this chakra practice. Is that alright with you two? Yup, don't worry Mia-sensei. Hinata and I will get this done with no problem, Naruto announced with a fist thrust towards the sensei, who shook her head and fist thrust back in connecting with his. Then explained to Naruto and Hinata that they might not get the practice done right away at first, but with some time into it they will complete it. With that she left it to Haku and Ino's hands now while she went to find Sho and get him to help her study up more on the Uzumaki scroll for Naruto to be able to learn more of his clan jutsu. Then he will become a well-known Uzumaki ninja in the Land of Fire. Now it was just the girls and Naruto there, all taking the time to look at the paper notes that Mia-sensei gave each one of them just in case they forgotten what jutsu they were practicing in. Only to find a huge bold word saying, "Finish the water walking before you even dare think of taking these jutsus." Which they all sweat drop at this and chuckle nervously to each other and began their training. Heading towards the lake, Naruto and Hinata started to panic when they saw that both of the girls in front were undressing, Naruto quickly covering his eyes. "Wah wah, what the hell are you two doing? If you're going to change into your swimsuits, then do it behind a bush or something," he yelled out to them, which after the girls took their shirts off to reveal bikinis underneath the shirts they blink in Naruto's direction along with Hinata, who just stood there dumbfounded and gave a little nervous sigh of relief, relieved that the girls weren't going to do anything drastic. "Hey, why Naruto? Did you wanted to see these two beautiful girls naked or something?" Ino teased, causing Haku to blush badly and covered up her chest even though she didn't need to. She looked shyly towards Naruto, who was now shaking and trembling. She then leered at Ino with a small scowl. Ino, that was really uncalled for. "Don't worry Naruto-kun, we had bikinis underneath our clothing just for the occasion," she said with slight shake in her voice, continuing to take the rest of her cloth off, showing that she was wearing a normal light blue two-piece bikini. To which Ino just absently waved her hand, non-coherently waving off the threat Haku was giving off. "Yeah, Naruto, you can open your eyes, it's safe, don't worry," she announced to the embarrassed boy, who slowly moved his hands away from his eyes and then let out a sigh of relief now seeing that they were right. Ino was wearing what looked like a black two-piece bikini that reaches down near her stomach and cuts from there. Ino faced the two teens that were still dressed and then placed her hands on her hips while leaning forward a bit. Well, aren't you two going to get into your swimsuits too? She asked, getting a blush from Hinata, who decided that the ground was more interest, while Naruto tilted his head a bit, twitching his ears in confusion. Then opened his mouth in an, oh, fashion, quickly getting into nothing but his boxers, causing all the girls to blush from the slight muscles he had gained from training. Not Hercules muscles, nor muscles that made him out of place, just a very slim fit body. Hinata was a darker shade of red than the others. Actually, watching her secret crush undress right in front of her was too much to bear, and she passed out on the ground, with a slight trail of blood from a nosebleed, of course. After getting Hinata up and back to the waking world, Haku helped out Hinata by letting her wear one of the other swimsuits she packed. Her mom had wanted her to bring extras, just in case that Ino and her were going to use jutsu on the lake. Haku personally liked the swimsuit the most, since it is very decent to wear and fits well for somebody shy like Hinata. Covering most of her upper body with a slight opening going down the middle to show some cleavage in the side of her chest, but not showing too much of her upper skin, while the bottom half reaches down near the thighs, leaving her belly button exposed. Haku-chan? Hinata asked with a nervous tone while tapping her index fingers together, only to get a light pinch on the cheek from the smiling girl. She and Ino were working really hard to get Hinata out of her shyness. Yes, Hinata. Well, earlier before we started to get ready for the water walking. Did you feel a weird vibe go through your body? She asked with a raised eyebrow, to which Haku blinked for a bit and then nodded to the girl. Now that you mention, yeah, I did. I'm sure it's